cults. Social groups centered around fringe and often radical beliefs pertaining to religion, spirituality, or philosophy. On some level, I think some people, most people, have had the thought cross their mind that they could be a cult leader. And let's be honest, who amongst us has that much charisma? I'm gonna guess not many. Except for myself, of course, subscribe to join my cult. But who has all that time? Certainly not me, not with all these video games I gotta play. Today, we're going to look at a game that combines the deep, dark desires of 1, starting a fringe religious group with people who would give their lives if you were to ask, and 2, doing nothing and sitting on your ass and playing video games. Lady and gentlemen, it's time for Cultist Simulator. To be honest, I've been struggling to write this script, and that's for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, I can't stop playing the damn thing. To get myself in the mindset of what I want to have included in the video, I found it necessary to play the game before sitting down to write, since there are just so many things to talk about. And then what was planned to only be about 30 minutes of gameplay quickly turns into, good lord, look at the time. Cultist Simulator is more powerful in that regard than Civilization, and I don't say that lightly. And I know what you're thinking, what the hell am I looking at? And look, I know I kinda got a habit of reviewing games with very controversial art styles, but I promise this is about to make a lot more sense. You see, unlike your typical simulator game, where you usually embody what it is to do a job, Cultist Sim opts to represent all of the actions you take as a purveyor of esoteric knowledge in the form of a card game. Wait. But don't be fooled into thinking that this is to keep it simple or not have to spend more money on a nicer engine and graphics. This whole game is designed conceptually around the cards, and it offers an insane amount of depth that you might not expect at first. Because believe it or not, you're going to be handling more aspects of your life as a cultist than you think. See, amongst the cards, there's a plethora of stories being told, all centered around you as the cultist. You can be a low-level office worker who hates his job as it constantly demands all of his free time, until one day you decide to go for a walk and come across a bookstore that sells occult tomes, and you fall into a rabbit hole of hidden knowledge. Eventually, you use that to found a cult. How long do you keep up appearances with your job while you run a cult on the side? Or maybe it was all to further your position in the company and secure yourself a place at the top. How about the bright young thing, who wastes his days away at his father's business, collecting passive income from doing nothing? But what's the poor sap to do when he lacks the creativity or wits to support himself when Papa passes away? Menial labor for shit pay, until he's an absolute bronze god with freakish muscles. Or how about the detective, who's tasked with hunting down and imprisoning practitioners of the occult? What would happen if he ran his own cult and used his position to lock up his enemies? That's all for you to find out. It's very easy to disassociate from what's going on and letting this all become something akin to a clicker game, but everything you're doing is a meaningful action taken in the life that you're simulating. So okay, a little more about what we're looking at here. These smaller rectangular icons are your cards, and the larger squares are actions or events that you use your cards with for different outcomes. Those outcomes can be very wide-ranging and are how you progress through a game of Cultist Simulator. Your actions consist of working, exploring, studying, talking, and dreaming. All have different interactions with the various cards you'll be obtaining as you play. Every action you take with each card takes a certain amount of time, and sometimes you'll need additional cards to complete actions you've started. That step will require its own set of time, so it takes even longer. Watching this timer is maddening. You'll have 4 different resources that you'll be managing while playing, consisting of health, passion, reason, and funds. Funds are going to be something that you need to constantly acquire, as not only do things require them for purchase, there's a steady timer that will take 1 fund from you every 60 seconds. Run out of funds, and it can hurt your health to the point of a permanent decrease. Completely run out of health cards, and it's game over. Funds are definitely something you want a lot of, since running a cult is an expensive side project. Not all cards are permanent, and some will have timers on them. Once these go down, they either disappear or decay into another card. And before we go on, I think here would be a good place to reveal another reason why I'm having such a hard time writing this script. And it can be found in the screen right before the start menu, though you probably won't realize what it means the first time you see it. Explore. Take risks. You won't always know what to do next. Keep experimenting and you'll master it. Part of playing this game, and it's a huge part, is learning how to play the game. There are no instructions given to you at any time, and it's up to you as the player to figure out what the hell it all means. And that includes what your goal is. Hang on, I can hear you typing away right now about how insane that sounds. But think for a minute, is that not par for the course for any roguelike, or any other game that gives little direction for that matter? Since this is a card game that's meant to be esoteric and weird, it fits thematically, almost like you're uncovering secret knowledge if you know what to look for, and once things start falling into place, you've already been hooked. It's not something I recommend using a wiki for until you've got a lot of experience under your belt. And I can say that as someone with over 100 hours in the game and a total of about 3 wins, but that probably just means I suck. While I wouldn't go so far as to call this a roguelike deck builder, I definitely would label it as a roguelite in the sense that every game you play is different from the last, and there are minimal things that carry over between runs. Because yes, you can lose and have to start over from the very beginning, but you get to select a new starting class or legacy each time you do, with different starting parameters. More on all that in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself. More on what we're looking at here. Everything you've been seeing is taking place on your game board, which is itself sitting in an unending void, which I guess makes you either some kind of eldritch being or currently being watched by one. This might seem like an odd choice, but this is the type of game that demands constant focus, so limiting pointless distractions like things going on in the background does feel right. To further demonstrate the lack of direction given I previously mentioned, how you set this up is completely up to your own interpretation. What you're viewing on the screen is how I've come to like setting it up through my extensive time with the game, but look at anyone else's and it's going to be very different. There's no right or wrong way to do it, and I do like that it gives you the freedom to make what it is for all intents and purposes your user interface set up however you like. The cards themselves all look really good and feature the game's pseudo-minimalist art style. That's to say, they're not insanely over-detailed, but they do an excellent job to visually convey the specific card they're attached to. Each card has a description or flavor text that perfectly falls in line with the developer's other titles. Oh yeah, if you didn't know, this game was created by Alexis Kennedy, the same guy who made the Fallen London series, which includes Sunless Sea and Sunless Skies. If you've played those games, you know how flowery and esoteric the writing already is in those, and it's been cranked up to 11 for this one. If you can manage to figure out what they're saying, the descriptions will often give hints as to what you can do with the cards, but those that are a little more specific in what they are will often include lore. And believe me, the lore in this game is just as complicated as real occult knowledge often is. Every step of an action has different text to read as well, and this is where you're going to get whatever story you can build from your run. This can be very easy to miss, but you'll want to take the time to read it all so that you know what you're doing. Not paying attention can be catastrophic. This is all stuff you see with your eyes, but what are you seeing with your ears? Fuck? That brings us to sound design. Sound effects are minimal and often short, but they effectively convey what they need to in a very satisfying way. You'll hear some a lot, you'll hear some less frequently, but you'll be hearing them repeatedly over the course of a game. Thankfully, they don't get grating or irritating and actually serve to hook you even further into the grip this game has on you while you play. For example, the sound of a timer being completed for an action to move to its next step is something you're going to hear all the time. But it functions as a nonverbal indicator that what you've set about to do is either nearing completion or is ready to be reviewed. That sound alone has served to keep me invested and from looking at a real clock so that I can determine if it's worth it or not to go to bed yet. Even if I was paying attention to the time, the answer would still be a resounding no. Time doesn't exist here, you see. The music you'll be hearing has a pretty wide range as well, from calm music that lends itself to a more curious tone, to the type of music you'd hear in your brain as you descend further into madness. It's like the knowledge and madness in your own noggin is leaking out and becoming some of the tracks you'll hear. Sometimes you'll hear music that sounds like this. This is your indicator that something has gone very wrong and your run is about to be over. It's the last ditch effort to save yourself, but if you don't have what it needs, you'll be starting a new descent soon. The way it works with the ever-decreasing countdown timer serves to fill you with a sense of impending, overwhelming doom, as there's often nothing you can do but listen to the creepy music, watch the time tick away, and then start a new run. On the whole, the music is good, and despite how well it fits the game, it's still something you could listen to while driving to your divorce hearing, or, you know, anywhere else you might need to go. Okay, so we've waited a bit to get here, but it's finally time to talk about how you play the game. I mentioned before that figuring out how to do all this is part of the fun. So in that vein, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do some of these things, but I gotta talk about something here. Don't expect a guide, and I'm going to be as vague as possible, but if you're thinking you want to play this game and play it as blind as possible, go pick it up and play it before you finish this video. I will be showing footage of myself doing some of these things as well, so be warned. As mentioned earlier, funds are going to be an absolutely vital part of Cultist Simulator, so it's best to hoard as much as your grubby little goblin paws can clutch onto. To do that, you're going to have to do some sort of oh, my bad. Work. This can take multiple different forms, and each legacy you can select has a different starting job or way to make that sweet, sweet dosh. They're usually either temporary or just very demanding, so you'll pretty quickly want to start finding other avenues of making money. You can use your health to break your back doing unskilled labor. It's not very lucrative, and you can injure yourself doing so, but it's faster than most other work and provides consistent pay. You can write academic papers for contacts using the associated lore required for them. These don't pay funds, but you get a secondary currency that is used for more occult uses. You can sell them at the auction house to convert to funds. What you're likely going to end up doing more than either of those is painting. It takes a while and isn't guaranteed to give you any money, but it is a good way to utilize cards for their associated aspects and to put a pause on the timer if you're trying to keep something around for longer. It's also borderline necessary to help manage the restlessness cards that you'll sometimes randomly get as they decay into dread. Get too much dread and it's game over. I guess kinda just like real life. Painting is also a good way to obtain contentment cards, which negates the death that can be caused by overwhelming dread. But surely the only use for funds isn't just to keep yourself alive, right? Great question. I appreciate that attention to detail. You should subscribe if you haven't already. Funds can be used for a lot of things, but the primary way you'll often end up using them is at the various places you can purchase books of esoteric knowledge. After you've explored around some, you'll gain access to a few places where you can purchase these books. After studying them or translating them if you need to, you gain access to a piece of knowledge that the book was associated with. Red books give you heart lore, purple gives you knock, and so on. There's a few different kinds of lore, and you'll need it all for various things, including the guiding principles you found your cult on. But to first start your cult, you must grow your collection of local freaks. To do so, you'll need to talk publicly about a piece of occult knowledge. The more you talk, the larger your circle of willing participants grows. Each person you induct into your cult will gain a stat associated with the tenets of lore, and they factor into different actions you can have them do. But be careful. While you're doing all this, you've likely drawn the attention of the Suppression Bureau, and they don't take kindly to people who know things they shouldn't. Kinda like probably shouldn't say that one. Your first hunter, because that's what they're called, will almost always be the weary detective. The more things you do that attract notoriety, the higher the chance is that he builds a piece of evidence that can lock you away for life, ending your run. He's persistent and an actual threat if allowed to be, but would having one of your followers get rid of him be the easiest solution? An inspector's disappearance while working your case might provoke a more seasoned detective to start following you. Plus, I mean, come on, look at him. You think this guy is gonna stop you? He just might. There's a lot of that risk and reward present in Cultist Sim. Just about everything you do has some modicum of RNG associated with it, and it can be modified by applying cards with specific stats. Speaking of those specific stats that all cards have, one of the things you can learn from certain books are occult rituals that you and your cult can perform. Adding different ingredients can have vastly different results, and some specific combinations are needed to beat the game. Tell you how, though. One of the things you can do with this is summoning an eldritch creature from the beyond that you can place under your thrall. Or they can break loose and try to eat you or a follower. Like I said, risk reward. You can use them in rituals, but also send them on fun little excursions with all your other friends to hidden vaults that act as dungeons you need to manage. You don't have to have an alien on your crew to do that, but sure does make it a lot easier. Meanwhile, you'll be using your esoteric knowledge to go to strange places in your dreams. This can be used to gain certain boons and can be very beneficial the further into the dream world you go. The further you go into your dreams, the more difficult the resources are to acquire that are needed to travel further. And don't forget, you'll be having to manage very real threats to your run. If you don't progress on the temptation of the secret knowledge you've chosen for too long, you'll get a restlessness card. Don't do anything with that restlessness, and like I said earlier, it decays to dread. If you have 3 dread and no contentment during a specific season that frequently comes around, you die, just like real life. You can get cursed on expeditions and permanently lose one of your hard-earned passion, reason, or health cards, which is part of why it's so necessary to have as many as possible. Oh, and you'll be getting sick from time to time as well. This leaves you with an affliction that takes the place of one of your health cards. If you don't heal it in time, it'll turn into a decrepitude and you'll permanently lose the health. I don't think I need to tell you that if this happens to all your health, it's game over. And all the while, you're learning how to play, how to set up your board, what each card can do with each action. Every step you piece together for yourself, and the further you progress, the further you get sucked in. Remember that all of this is happening at the same time. Sometimes I find myself going on a frenzy, keeping up with everything as meticulously as I can. That timer is also going to keep you trapped here for a while. I wasn't kidding when I said that this game hooks me more than a game of Civ. You don't realize that time is passing, but you can literally watch it pass by on the multitude of timers you're going to be seeing at any one time. Thankfully, you can speed it all up, but many times I found myself just wanting to sit down for a quick game and end up completely enthralled until 4 a.m., whereupon I usually find myself anxious, as if something's watching me. To keep it all fresh, I like to play this game in bursts. I'll get very into it, win a run, and then leave it alone for a few months, so I forget some of the later game steps to winning. It'll never be like my first time again, but I still get to enjoy the elements of discovery this game has. Now, I've been talking this up a lot because I'm admittedly biased as someone who loves this game, but it does have some aspects I don't particularly care for. For one, the start of every game might be different for each legacy you choose, but once things start kicking into gear and you get into the meat of the game, you're basically required to do the same thing each and every time. That mainly being increasing your health, passion, and reason. Without spoiling how it's done, doing so for each will require dedication and time. And it's easy to lose progress if you don't maintain the resources required to increase the stats. And having as much of each stat as you can is so necessary that you are actively contributing to a losing run if you try to play too much without having them all fully upgraded. It is my least favorite part of starting any run, mainly because of how long it takes, and how it's basically a requirement to start working on that first thing in a game that emphasizes player agency. The second thing I want to bring up is in a very similar vein, but it's the win conditions for most of the descents available. Different temptations that you can progress to win each game will go through basically the same steps to meet each one's win condition, with the only difference largely being the kind of lore that you use to further it. For as many different kinds of lore as there are, really only 3 in the base game are associated with different paths you can take to victory. It makes a lot of the lore pieces feel largely redundant and emphasizes specific main branches that you're going to mainly focus on in any run when it comes time to figuring out how you're going to win. And then once you figure that out, getting to the end is going to feature very similar steps to the other temptations. This was fixed with the DLC characters, with some of them having some strange and bizarre conditions for victory. But if you're playing one of the base game descents, you'll only have access to the ending added with the Dancer DLC, so there are even further limitations there. But even with this, I still find myself entranced every time I find myself falling back into the hole that is Cultist Simulator. Yeah, these things aren't my favorite, but as I've said before, I can count on one hand the number of times I've gotten a major ending to this game, and it never seems to lose that mystical feeling. I'm kind of willing to forgive the limited amount of path to victory because it's really hard to win this game. You can have runs that go for days that end because you forgot to manage your dread or picked up one too many curses. Final victory manages to stay ever out of your grasp until you finally figure it out. You ascend to a higher plane of existence, and it really feels like you earned it. So there we go. I've loved this game for a really long time, and it was really cool to finally be able to dive into it like this. Let me know in the comments below what shenanigans you and your cult members have gotten into, or the most BS way you've lost a run. If you liked the video, remember to leave a like, and if you made it this far, give one of the other videos on screen a try. Don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I'm shooting for my next goal at 5,000 subs. I know you all can help me get there. All that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.